A young man swiftly throws a weapon at a large, blob-like monster standing in a grassy field. His movement sharp and determined. He then checks his phone. A small musical note indicating a notification, while catching his breath. The young man announces he has completed a quest, and a confident young woman with long hair and a cheerful young man appear behind him, celebrating the reward. The young woman holds up her phone, ready to reveal the prize. The young man introduces himself as Sanji Ryoma, a university student, reflecting on his life 3 hours earlier in his original world. He relaxes in his hobby room surrounded by books, figurines, and a cozy atmosphere, explaining how he spends his days off immersed in light novels, anime, and games. He continues, revealing his wealthy background as the son of the Sanji Group's heads. A powerful conglomerate in Japan, his family consists of elite doctors and politicians, but he considers himself an ordinary person, despite the privilege and money he enjoys, which he admits mostly comes from his parents. The young man reflects on how his cousins mock him for being ordinary. While a girl who once had a boyfriend was given tribute and then cheated on, he feels betrayed by friends who now badmouth him behind his back. Despite living in a room owned by his wealthy parents, he admits he hasn't done anything with his own power or worked part-time since they stopped working, resigned that it can't be helped. He imagines people approaching him, only to be disappointed by his true self and leaving on their own. He wishes to hide his family lineage and live peacefully, fearing the fuss and curiosity that would arise once his identity is discovered. The only thing that interests others is the Sanji family name, but he longs to do something on his own and be seen without that title. Sitting alone in his room, he sighs deeply, expressing his frustration with reality and his desire to escape to another world. Books with titles about peaceful reincarnation and escape lie nearby, emphasizing his yearning for a different life. Suddenly, a radiant light descends upon him, startling him as he shields his eyes. A voice encourages making his wish come true, signaling the start of an extraordinary change. The young man notices a notification sound from his phone and curiously taps it, revealing unfamiliar app icons labeled God Quest, God Store, Mail, Translation, Search, and Inventory, causing him to question their sudden appearance. He stares in shock at the notification, realizing it isn't from the mail app he's used to, and wonders when these strange apps appeared on his device. A message greets him by name, introducing itself as Meshafim, the god of games and pleasures, who explains they have heard his heart and invite him to their world called Myrr. The young man listens intently, phone in hand, as the message unfolds. Suddenly, he finds himself transported to another world, a place resembling a novel or game filled with magic and monsters. His expression a mix of awe and disbelief as he grasps the reality of his new situation. The young man, still holding his phone, questions if this is truly not a dream as he recalls his wish to go to another world. The phone glows brightly, and a message explains that it was the only item he had, modified to be useful in this new realm called Myrr. He learns that his species was changed to endure the transition, and he is invited to enjoy this world. A radiant light pours down, filling his vision as he feels a surge of disbelief and excitement. He envisions a world filled with magic and swords, the very fantasy he had dreamed of, unable to believe this is actually happening. Sitting on his bed, he wonders about his new race, debating between elf or beastman. While clenching his fists in anticipation, he asks if he can check his status on the phone, and upon viewing it, he discovers his name, age is 15 years old, and race listed as demigod, surprising him. Shocked, he exclaims that he is a demigod and younger than before, overwhelmed by the revelation as he stares at his phone, trying to grasp the reality of his new identity. The young man, overwhelmed by the revelation of his demigod status, recalls how rare demigods are in anime and games, then nervously decides to use the search app to learn more about his new race. A radiant figure in flowing robes appears, explaining that a demigod is a race evolved through God's blessing, possessing great power and a long lifespan, though not immortal. Sitting on the floor, he processes the news that there are currently 5 demigods in the world of Myrr, and now a new one has been added. Himself, memories of unpleasant stares and judgment from others flood his mind, but he steels himself, reminding that he is in a wonderful different world and resolves to enjoy it despite the challenges. Standing inside a rustic cabin, he eagerly prepares to begin his adventure. Putting on equipment from his inventory, he confirms that the clothes and gear are from the inventory, readying himself for what lies ahead with determination to have a blast in this new life. Holding a gleaming sword, he marvels at its reality, feeling the weight and sharpness as confirmation of his new existence. His phone buzzes with a notification that he has completed the God Quest tutorial for equipping weapons and armor, earning 10 God points and the skill of swordsmanship. pleasantly surprised by the smooth start to his journey. The young man excitedly realizes he has gained a skill and god points, amazed at the increase in his abilities and the chance to buy skills and apps at the god store. Clenching his fist with determination, he declares he'll do his best and steps out of the hut to begin his adventure. Ready to complete the tutorial by subjugating slimes and raising his level. He battles fiercely against monstrous foes, recalling how retrieving a magic stone from a slain monster was unexpectedly difficult since loot doesn't automatically collect. Despite the struggle, he manages to grasp the glowing magic stone, reflecting on his mistake and the challenge it posed. After a tiring day, he takes a night off but resumes the tutorial the next day, fighting monsters with renewed vigor. Using the rewards he earned, he acquires various skills, items, and apps, including a magic guidebook, a purification healing skill, a traveler's cloak, and a map app, preparing himself thoroughly for the journey ahead. While studying the magic guidebook, he discovers a water magic skill and tentatively tests it by forming a water orb in his hand. Surprised and delighted by the magic's power, he fires a water bullet at a wall, marveling at the effectiveness of this newfound ability. The young man studies his phone's quest list, frustrated that his magic power isn't strong enough to meet his expectations. He urges himself to focus as he reads the next mission. To leave the forest and head to town, excitement lights up his face as he realizes he can finally visit a city in this new world. Checking his map app, he wonders if he is in such a remote location. He walks cautiously through the forest, noticing the sun beginning to set, concerned about the distance traveled. He admits he exerted too much force earlier and contemplates camping outdoors, relieved he can at least make a campfire using fire magic. Suddenly, monstrous creatures with multiple eyes and sharp fangs burst from the trees, charging aggressively toward him. He draws his sword defensively, recognizing that the monsters are clearly targeting him. Surrounded by several snarling beasts in the darkening forest, he struggles to fend them off as the night grows too dark. With a determined grimace, he swings his sword to protect himself from the oncoming attacks. Surrounded by snarling beasts with multiple eyes and sharp fangs, the young man swings his sword desperately to fend off their fierce attack, but one of the monsters lunges and knocks the weapon from his grasp. As the sword clatters to the ground, panic flashes across his face, realizing the grave danger without his blade. The monstrous pack closes in, and he fears for his life, questioning if any divine intervention will come. Determined not to succumb, he steels himself and resolves to fight differently, summoning a swirling orb of water in his hand as he prepares to unleash a powerful water bullet in place of his lost sword. With a fierce cry, he hurls the water magic at the charging beasts, the force of the attack surprising even himself as the creatures recoil from the unexpected assault. The young man unleashes a powerful water magic attack, sending swirling torrents crashing into the monstrous beasts, their bodies violently torn apart by the force of the assault. The creatures fall lifeless to the ground, blood splattering as their forms collapse, overwhelmed by the unexpected magical onslaught. Catching his breath, the young man sits on the forest floor, sweat and dirt marking his face and clothes, quietly relieved yet still wary as the defeated monsters lie scattered around him. A bright smile breaks across his face as he clenches his fists in triumph, proud of having survived alone, and he looks ahead to the forest's edge where a group of travelers and a cart appear, signaling his arrival beyond the woods. Two armored men and a cloaked figure notice the young man, who stands out as a different race among them. One of the armored men comments on his worn appearance and asks if he is heading to the city of Fails. The young man, slightly breathless, admits that he is. A cheerful carriage driver offers the young man a ride, warning that walking will take a long time. The young man hesitates but accepts, trusting his magic in case of emergency, and politely thanks the driver as he climbs aboard. Inside the carriage, a young man in armor asks if the newcomer is a traveler. The young man nods quietly as the armored man explains they are guarding the carriage, extending a hand in greeting. The armored man introduces himself as Roma and the young woman sitting beside him as Perm, warmly welcoming the newcomer with a friendly smile and an outstretched hand. The young man steps onto the carriage, shaking hands with the armored youth who introduces himself warmly. The armored youth asks if he is ready to join, encouraging him to get along as the carriage begins its journey. The black-haired youth, cloaked and determined, looks ahead as the armored youth salutes confidently beside a young woman, declaring their destination as the city of Fails, while the carriage moves forward under a bright sky. A horse-drawn carriage moves steadily through a forested path as the black-haired youth named Ryoma Sionji sits inside, accompanied by two armored travelers and a young woman. The armored man cheerfully addresses Ryoma by name, asking where he came from as they prepare to journey to the city of Fails. Ryoma explains he comes from the east and inquires about the origins of the armored youth and the woman. The young man introduces himself simply as Roma and explains they are adventurers from a nearby village, with the woman named Perm being his childhood friend and a wind mage. Roma reaches into a bag and offers food, mentioning it's time for lunch. Ryoma declines, saying he isn't hungry and instead drinks water from a magical orb, causing the two companions to look on with surprise. Perm compliments Ryoma on his magic skills and asks if he is a mage. He replies that he is just a normal traveler. Perm then questions why he didn't cast magic aloud, explaining that casting without chance is a secret technique mastered only by skilled magic users, and she expresses her admiration for all magic users with sparkling eyes. The black-haired youth recalls that the manual never mentioned chanting for magic, surprised by this secret technique. The armored man beside him expresses gratitude, explaining how water mages are invaluable since water is precious and difficult to carry, saving them from climbing mountains to fetch it. The young man quietly admits he isn't truly a mage, though the companions marvel at his skill. Laughing and acknowledging it's better, he keeps this hidden. The carriage arrives at the bustling city of Fales, and the young man gazes in awe at the lively streets filled with people and medieval buildings. The armored youth announces their arrival with excitement, while the newcomer is visibly amazed by the vibrant scene before him. The newcomer takes in the sights of the city, noting the presence of many humans and shops, including a weapons store. The armored man asks what he plans to do now that he's arrived, and the young man eagerly offers to help as thanks for the ride, clearly wanting to repay their kindness. After unloading their belongings, the armored youth inquires if the newcomer has a place to stay, and he admits he hasn't decided yet. The companions offer to introduce him to someone they know and promise assistance, mentioning they work in the city and might cross paths again. The young man gratefully accepts, and the two wave goodbye as they prepare to part ways. The young man arrives at a bustling inn, recognizing it as the place introduced by Lunas, the person who guided him to town. He exchanges greetings with the innkeeper, who offers a discount due to the introduction. Exhausted, he collapses onto a bed, reflecting on how much fun the city was despite the challenges. Grateful for the chance to meet people from this world and use magic. Sitting up on the bed, he inspects a newly acquired bag, the reward for completing the tutorial quest of leaving the forest and entering the town. He notes the bag's popularity and capacity. Appreciating its convenience for storing items, he carefully places his sword inside the bag, deciding it's safer than carrying it openly, then checks his device for the next quest. Excitedly, he reads the next tutorial quest on his device, which instructs him to register with the Adventurers Guild. Though it's late, he resolves to go the next day, his anticipation growing as he feels the world around him becoming more like a true fantasy realm. The night sky stretches above the cityscape, hinting at the adventures to come. The young man arrives at the Adventurers Guild building, confirming its location with a glance at his device. He opens the grand door and steps inside, his expression a mix of determination and nervous excitement as he prepares to take the next step in his journey. The Adventurers Guild bustles with activity as armored figures gather, some seated and others standing, while one exclaims in awe at the impressive scene. Overwhelmed by the lively atmosphere, various adventurers examine notices on a board, and a group approaches a counter where a man handles a large horned helmet. A familiar armored youth greets the black-haired newcomer warmly, recognizing him by name and expressing delight at their reunion. The newcomer clarifies that he is here to register as an adventurer, prompting the youth to enthusiastically offer to guide him through the process. At the registration desk, a composed woman introduces herself as Renee, responsible for adventurer registration at the Fales branch. She invites the newcomer to place his hand on a crystal orb to begin the process, while he looks on with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The newcomer contemplates the crystal device, understanding it will reveal his stats and skills, and worries about his race being discovered. Despite his hesitation, he places his hand on the orb, asking the woman not to be surprised by whatever the device reveals. Determined to complete the tutorial and move forward, the Adventurers Guild hall bursts with light as a cloaked figure approaches the registration desk, drawing the attention of everyone present. The newcomer sweats nervously as the crowd murmurs in confusion and surprise, while he urgently pleads for secrecy about what just happened. A woman quietly offers to show him to another room. Seated alone in a small room, the cloaked figure sighs in relief but admits the situation is troublesome. Suddenly, a stern man and a woman enter, introducing the man as Guild Master Gimel. The Guild Master reveals that the previous registration identified the newcomer as a demigod. Confirming suspicions, the newcomer requests to verify this himself and is asked to place his hand on a crystal orb, which is said to be more accurate than the receptionist's. A sudden burst of light fills the room, startling the bald man with the scar and the woman beside him, both reacting with shock and surprise. The newcomer remains seated, calmly observing the scene. The scarred man quickly approaches the newcomer, bowing deeply and assuring him that the registration card will be prepared immediately. While pleading for him not to be afraid, the newcomer awkwardly admits he cannot act normally around a demigod. Causing confusion, the woman quietly interjects, drawing attention. The woman questions if there is proof of the god's blessing, explaining it is said to be carved somewhere on their body. While the newcomer checks his arm for any sign, he then reveals he received a message from the god Meshafim, surprising both the man and woman. The newcomer shows a black bag hanging from his shoulder, explaining it is the proof of the blessing granted by Meshafim. The scarred man and woman react with awe and excitement as the newcomer clarifies this ability was given by the god who bestowed the blessings. The newcomer explains that the proof of his blessing is supposedly around the shoulder blades. As Meshafim mentioned in the message, the woman eagerly asks to see it, while the scarred man protests, insisting he should be the one to witness it. The young man hesitates, admitting it's awkward to undress in front of women, but reveals a distinct mark on his back, declaring it the proof of God's blessing. The scarred man looks stunned as the newcomer quickly covers himself again, apologizing for the unintended exposure. The scarred man formally welcomes the newcomer once more, promising to contact the guild headquarters to prepare a special registration card just for him. The newcomer questions the need for a special card, while the man explains that Grandmaster's orders are strict and a normal card won't suffice. The newcomer learns that the Adventurers Guild was founded 800 years ago by Ryutaru Sumeragi, an apostle of the creator god, who remains the guild's Grandmaster. Surprised, the newcomer recognizes this as another demigod and notes that judging by the name, the Grandmaster is definitely Japanese. The young man examines a sleek, metallic guild card presented to him, noting its rainbow sheen and the numerous functions it contains. He learns it is the personal guild card of Master Ryoma, with a special ability allowing apostles to communicate with one another. Suddenly, a radiant figure appears, greeting him warmly as the new apostle, causing the young man to recoil in surprise. The glowing figure introduces himself as Emperor Ryutaru, the Grand Master of the guild, leaving the young man stunned and speechless as the figure begins to fade away, signaling the arrival of a powerful new presence. The young man stares in awe at a shimmering projection of a smiling figure, realizing this radiant presence is the Grand Master of the guild. He marvels at how youthful the Grand Master appears, reflecting on the immortality of demigods. Suddenly, the projection calls out to him, asking if the magic is working, prompting the young man to respond with surprise. The projection introduces himself formally as Sanji Ryoma and warmly welcomes the newcomer. Recognizing him as the new apostle, the young man nervously returns the greeting and explains that he was brought to this world by Meshafim, the god of games and pleasure. The Grand Master remarks on the trouble the young man has attracted from this mischievous deity, leaving the newcomer confused and uneasy. The Grand Master begins recounting the origins of the Adventurers Guild, explaining that he created it to help people conquer dungeons worldwide. He reveals that Meshafim was the one who created these dungeons, calling them trials. While the young man reflects on the chaos that once engulfed the world, the projection then signals that it is time to discuss the blessing the young man received once more. Back in the room, the bald, scarred man and the woman inform the young man that his registration is complete, acknowledging the hectic process. The scarred man introduces Renee as the young man's personal attendant and encourages him to communicate any requests directly to her or himself. The young man expresses relief as he descends a staircase, noting the registration took longer than expected, while Renee bows politely, ready to assist him moving forward. The young man finally descends the stairs, greeted by a concerned voice asking if he is all right. He reassures them that he registered without any issues and became an adventurer, while the others express relief and curiosity about his next plans. He decides to start with a simple herb-gathering request, prompting an enthusiastic agreement from his companions who offer to help, explaining that the nearby forest has plenty of herbs and the task will be quick. The group discusses the different types of requests, including monster subjugation, and the young man learns about the guild rank system that increases with completed quests, unlocking more difficult and rewarding missions as one advances. At the guild counter, the young man formally requests a herb-gathering quest, surprising the clerk who notes that his friends Roma and Perm are not taking on subjugation tasks today. The young man introduces himself as Ryoma, confirming his recent registration as the newcomer. A man anxiously asks if the newcomer could be the apostle, realizing the notice has already been sent out, while the young man quietly confirms it with a nervous smile. Suddenly, a staff member hurriedly announces switching to the person in charge, leaving the two companions confused and wondering what is happening. At the guild counter, the young man approaches to request a herb-gathering quest but hesitates, worried that showing his registration certificate will reveal his demigod status. His companions watch quietly as the clerk asks for the certificate, The young man nervously confirms his name when addressed. The young man reveals his registration card, which flashes his name, demigod status, and guild rank, shocking the clerk and his companions. The clerk confirms the registration and wishes him luck, while the companions react with surprise and concern. The companions question the young man's demigod status aloud, causing him to worry that they might distance themselves or view him with curiosity. He apologizes for the surprise and the feeling of having deceived them, contemplating whether he should abandon the request altogether as he steps forward hesitantly. The young man is met with firm determination from his companions, who insist they will accompany him on the quest, vowing to see it through no matter who he is. Their resolve surprises him as they prepare to set out together. Walking along a stone bridge, he explains his demigod status and inexperience in this world, asking to be treated as before. His friends reassure him warmly that despite his circumstances, he remains the same Ryoma, encouraging him with smiles and steady support. The group stands united in a forest clearing, expressing gratitude and readiness to tackle the herb-gathering request. They spot the target herb with heart-shaped leaves, and the young man eagerly begins searching, motivated to complete the task alongside his friends. As he carefully collects herbs, his companion warns him to stay alert for monster ambushes. He acknowledges the challenge of finding 11 herbs in 2 hours and wishes they had a map to locate them more easily, while a lurking monster watches silently nearby. A monstrous bat swoops down toward the young man, who panics upon realizing his sword remains in his inventory and not in hand. The armored companion shouts a warning, swiftly intercepting the attack with a powerful strike. The young man calls out to his friend, concerned for his safety, as they face a flock of aggressive Frida Vogel creatures. The very monsters tied to their subjugation quest, surrounded and outnumbered. They prepare to flee, but the armored companion insists they stand their ground. The young man's female companion breathes a sigh of relief, having just saved them with a timely intervention. She asks if he can wield water magic offensively, and he admits he can, though hesitantly. The armored companion grins confidently, proposing they combine their efforts to take down the monsters together, to which the young man agrees. The young woman readies a wind magic spell to create a distraction, urging her allies to trust her. The young man contemplates controlling his water magic carefully to avoid harming his friends, while the armored companion stands poised with sword drawn, rallying the group as they prepare to launch their coordinated attack. The young man narrowly dodges a swooping bat monster, his face tense with panic as the armored companion shouts his name and unleashes a powerful water magic attack, scattering the aggressive creatures in a dazzling display of force. The monsters fall silent, and the group shares a relieved moment, exchanging joyful high-fives as they celebrate their victory over the threat together. The young man receives heartfelt praise for his impressive magic, while his companions encourage him to speak more casually with them, reminding him that they are comrades and friends, not formal acquaintances. Embracing their camaraderie, the young man smiles warmly, acknowledging their bond and agreeing to open up more, feeling a newfound sense of belonging after fighting side by side. Outside the guild, the young man thanks his companions warmly for their support and promises to be at the guild often while adventuring around Phaleus, inviting them to reach out anytime. The two friends cheerfully express their excitement to take on more quests together, while he smiles brightly, waving in agreement. Sitting on his bed, he reviews his quest list on his phone, noting that the current tutorial task to accept and complete a request at the Adventurers Guild is already done. He contemplates the final tutorial, which involves going to the church to offer a prayer to the gods, intrigued by the unusually large rewards it offers. As night falls, he considers his lack of understanding about the divine tasks and decides to research the concept of divinity, learning that apostles gather faith, perform great deeds, and gain recognition that strengthens their abilities, eventually leading to godhood. He wonders what the god Meshaphim is planning for him, quietly hoping to remain just a normal adventurer. Inside the grand church, he nervously wonders how to pray properly and debates whether to imitate what others do. Suddenly, he calls out loudly to Meshaphim, startling nearby worshippers as he braces himself in a prayerful stance, determined to confront whatever fate awaits him. The young man stands in awe within a grand hall filled with towering pillars and radiant light streaming down, his expression a mix of shock and wonder as he questions the unfamiliar place he has found himself in. Sitting atop a pedestal bathed in light, a youthful figure with tousled hair and a welcoming smile raises a hand in greeting, addressing the young man by name as the one who appeared through his prayer. The young man stands in awe beneath towering pillars, gazing up at a childlike figure perched high on a pedestal, who greets him warmly and confirms that he is Meshaphim, the god of games and pleasure. The child deity explains that he brought the young man to this world because the young man wished to come, revealing that his wish is simply to enjoy this world to the fullest. Smiling kindly, The god encourages the young man, named Ryoma, to embrace life fully and promises to watch over him happily as he embarks on this new journey. The young man finds himself back in the grand church where he was before, kneeling in surprise as the god's words echo, reinforcing the significance of this divine encounter. The young man reflects on the god's advice to enjoy to the fullest, feeling the weight of being watched as he sits among others, clutching his satchel tightly. Outside, the grand church stands solemn and imposing. He excitedly confirms completing all tutorial quests on his phone and prepares to claim his rewards, only to be startled when his smartphone begins to glow and transform unexpectedly. Examining the new reward, he realizes it's a smartphone upgrade that can be summoned and stored by focus alone, making it easier to manage than traditional item groups. New daily quests appear on his screen, prompting his curiosity. Eager and enthusiastic, he decides to dive into this new world, planning to tackle a guild quest to defeat 5 monsters, fully resolved to enjoy his adventure and embrace the challenges ahead. The young man effortlessly dispatches goblins with precise sword strikes, confidently declaring them an easy foe, though he admits the challenge lies in dismembering them to extract magic stones as proof of subjugation. Suddenly, a desperate cry for help cuts through the forest air. He quickly notices another figure under attack by vicious wolf-like beasts and immediately casts a water magic shield to protect the endangered youth, reacting swiftly to the urgent danger. Sprinting to the injured boy's side, he fends off the remaining beasts with fierce determination, then checks his inventory for a healing potion, ready to aid his fallen comrade. Offering the potion to the wounded youth, he urges him to drink it, watching anxiously as the boy slowly regains consciousness, relieved to see him begin to recover from the brutal assault. The injured youth, Ruin, expresses heartfelt gratitude for being saved, introducing himself as a rookie adventurer while brushing dirt off his clothes. The young man, Ryoma, modestly responds, asking him not to mention it. Ruin eagerly insists on repaying Ryoma for his kindness, declaring him his lifesaver and promising to help with anything needed. Ryoma awkwardly tries to decline but ultimately agrees, realizing he can't refuse the offer. Ryoma invites Ruin to join him in playing a game, which Ruin accepts enthusiastically, seeing it as a perfect chance to help clear a daily quest and test Ryoma's newly acquired abilities. Ryoma explains that the power he received from Meshafim governs all games, controlling victories and defeats, detecting cheating instantly, and enforcing bets decided by games. With a confident smile, he prepares to reveal the game they will play. The young man explains that the game is a simple coin toss where one guesses heads or tails, then flips the coin with a confident smile. He asks his companion to choose, and the other eagerly calls out heads. He reveals tails as the other side and chooses tails himself, demonstrating the ability to change the coin's outcome from heads to tails after it was placed. The companion asks if he can try again, and the young man agrees, realizing he can control the result. He decides to manipulate the game so his friend wins 5 times in a row, offering to bet a magic stone while the other wagers a medicinal herb. The coin lands on heads, granting the friend victory, and the young man celebrates his success. Reflecting on the magic stone he bet, he understands that items wagered transfer automatically upon loss, a powerful ability requiring careful use. The friend, grateful for the game, is surprised by the modest reward, but the young man insists it's enough and suggests they return to town together. A young man is asked if he has finished his report and invited to go out for a meal, to which he eagerly agrees. Plates of food are shown, and the conversation turns to the quality and affordability of the inn upstairs, which is a hidden gem for beginners. They discuss sharing a room, and both agree it works for them. The two sit in a room with twin beds. One stretches while the other explains plans to collect rewards from the daily quest and possibly use god points to increase magic power. The other looks on with curiosity, asking if the item is magical. The young man confirms it is something like the magical item used earlier at the guild. His companion expresses excitement, wanting to earn enough to buy a magical item too. The young man smiles thoughtfully, considering the situation. With a confident expression, the young man suggests doing part-time work, prompting a surprised reaction from his companion, who repeats the phrase in disbelief. The young man asks about part-time work, learning it's like a quest where he hunts goblins and extracts magic stones to sell and share the profits. Excited, he agrees eagerly, explaining he needs to replace his gear, and they arrange to meet the day after tomorrow before settling in for the night. He plans to buy magic skills with his god points, boosting earth, wind, and fire magic, feeling his magical power increase as he prepares for tomorrow's quests. Browsing his phone, he discovers an app called Fairy Garden, resembling a mobile game, and decides to install it, intrigued by the new addition to his magical journey. The young man excitedly discovers a fairy-raising game on his phone, summoning a sparkling fairy king without a name, which he quickly decides to call Phonon, thrilled by the rarity of the summon. He notices the fairy happily accepting herbs from the game, amazed that he can actually extract items from the virtual world, and eagerly wonders if he can send something back, realizing the tree might be Yggdrasil. The next morning, a companion greets him as he admits to playing the game all night. Determined, he sets out to hunt goblins, telling his friend he will find tasks at the guild later, then uses his phone to locate a dense cluster of monsters in the forest, confident he has found the right spot. Arriving at a goblin nest filled with numerous small huts and armed goblins, he steels himself to lure them to a single location and test his new magic, ready to take them all down despite their numbers. The young man launches a barrage of rocks at the goblins, striking multiple enemies in quick succession. As the goblins reel from the attack, he notices a larger figure approaching, signaling the arrival of the boss. Flames erupt from his hands, raining down fire upon the advancing goblins, scattering them. The imposing boss goblin leads the charge, prompting the young man to prepare for a decisive battle. With a determined shout, he counters the goblin's assault, delivering a powerful strike that sends one flying. He refuses to be defeated easily, standing firm against the overwhelming numbers. After the intense fight, he surveys the fallen enemies, feeling a mix of relief and tension. He decides to store the goblin corpses in his inventory for later dismantling, preparing for what lies ahead. The young man studies the app's monster encyclopedia, identifying the large goblin as a hobgoblin that has evolved. He resolves to purify the nest to prevent further evolution, preparing to use the power he gained the previous day. Raising his hands, he unleashes divine magic, summoning radiant pillars of light that envelop the area, signaling the start of a powerful purification ritual. The divine magic creates a sanctuary of holy light, capable of healing wounds and blocking attacks, forming a protective barrier where no monster can enter, a magic only a god can wield. Standing within the purified sanctuary, he notes the air feels cleaner and the quest is complete, earning the reward of psychokinesis. Excited, he eagerly anticipates trying out his new power immediately. The young man experiments with magic, focusing on wrapping his power around a sword. As the blade begins to float, he carefully reaches out, amazed by the sensation of controlling the weapon mid-air. He joyfully swings the floating sword in wide arcs, reveling in the thrill of mastering this new skill. Laughing, he acknowledges how fun it is to wield a sword without touching it, before deciding it's time to head back. The next day, he and a companion stand in a clearing, ready to dismantle the goblin remains. The young man pulls out his inventory tool, excited to begin, and suggests splitting the work due to the large pile of corpses. The companion nervously agrees. As they start dismantling the goblin bodies, the companion notices a large hobgoblin among them and questions if the young man is an advanced adventurer for taking on such a dangerous nest alone. The young man confirms he cleared the goblin nest by himself, showing confidence despite the challenge. The young man modestly downplays his feat, explaining he kept his distance and used magic to defeat the goblins. While his companion praises him enthusiastically and offers some berries, they both express hunger and relief as they finish their work, eager to return to town and exchange their haul at the guild, excitedly wondering how much money they will earn. A pile of coins is counted, revealing a total of 132 binas, which surprises both of them. The young man hands over the payment to his companion, who gratefully thanks him, thrilled at the prospect of upgrading his gear. The bald, scarred guild master Gimel approaches with urgency, requesting a moment of the young man's time to share something important. The young man agrees, sensing the seriousness, and asks the companion to head back to the inn ahead of them as they prepare to talk privately. The guild master delivers startling news. A messenger from King Rulo of the Finland royal family has arrived, requesting an audience with the young man. Shocked, he reacts with disbelief at the mention of the king, realizing the gravity of the situation. The young man, Ryoma Sayonji, is stunned as he learns that the king himself has sent an envoy for him. Unable to refuse the royal summons despite his shock, Guild Master Gimel calmly explains that as a demigod, Ryoma holds a status even higher than the king. Contemplating the situation, Ryoma acknowledges that ignoring a king is impossible and decides it's best to avoid unnecessary conflict by continuing his work in the country for now. He resolves to meet the king, feeling it's the safest course of action. The two arrange a meeting for the day after tomorrow in the early afternoon, with Ryoma requesting time to prepare himself. The gravity of the situation sinks in as he reflects on the seriousness of receiving a royal envoy. At the inn, a woman informs Ryoma that Ruin-sama has reserved a shared room for him, and he gratefully thinks to himself about Ruin's considerate arrangement. Despite the envoy being sent ahead, he prepares to rest, readying himself for what lies ahead. The young man nervously asks who Ryoma Sanji really is. Noting he's never seen Guild Master Gimel behave so seriously before, he hesitates before revealing a card that identifies Ryoma as a demigod with the highest guild rank, shocking the other. The young man reacts with disbelief as the other recalls rumors about Ryoma being a famous apostle. He insists there's no need for formality between them, reminding that they worked hard dismantling goblin corpses together and are already friends. The young man pleads not to be treated like a stranger, confessing that would make him feel lonely. The other agrees, asking to be called simply by his name and to drop honorifics, suggesting they grab a meal together afterward. They enter a weapon shop filled with various swords and axes. The young man is excited by the many options and asks for help picking out new gear, while the other happily obliges, admitting he's genuinely thrilled by such weapons. The young man asks if his companion found anything good, while the other debates between two swords, carefully examining one with a thoughtful expression. The young man admits he doesn't know much about weapons, and the companion points out a sword that looks promising. Suddenly, a cheerful figure named Roma greets them, explaining his weapon broke fighting orcs. The young man introduces Roma to Ruin, a female adventurer and friend, and asks Roma to help Ruin check out some armor, which he gladly agrees to. Roma advises Ruin to choose between a small round shield for defense or iron bracers for lighter movement, and Ruin decides on the bracers. Thanking him, the young man notices Roma's bracers are worn out and asks if he's considering new ones, but Roma admits he's waiting until they break due to budget constraints. Grateful for the young man's help teaching Ruin about weapons, Roma is offered a present as thanks. The young man insists Roma should use something reliable, not wanting anything to happen to him, and Roma accepts the gift with sincere thanks. The young man hands over healing potions to his companion, reminding him to use them properly, while promising to give some to Ruin as well. They agree to meet up later for a meal, inviting Roma to join them. A cheerful young woman excitedly points out the restaurant where they will gather. Inside the stylish restaurant, the group sits around a table, browsing the menu. The young man feels a bit intimidated by the elegant atmosphere but wonders about the menu options. Noting that most food in this world consists of grilled mystery meat, his surprise grows when he spots rice balls listed. A lively woman enthusiastically praises a dish, explaining it was created by the apostle Hana Higuchi, who developed many recipes and cooking methods, founding the Hinamoto divine nation. The young man reflects on the name, realizing it sounds Japanese, which makes sense. A waitress arrives to serve their food. The table is filled with an impressive spread, including a large burger with fries and a dish covered in sauce. The young man and his companions gaze at the food in awe, exclaiming their amazement at the feast before them. The table is laden with a sumptuous feast, featuring a tender hamburger steak, a BLT sandwich, and a plate of pasta garnished with fresh basil. The group expresses delight, marveling at the surprisingly delicious flavors in this world. They cheerfully praise the pasta, grateful to the legendary Hana Higuchi for her culinary creations. The young man wishes for more moments like this as they sip coffee and tea, while a conversation begins about what Perm accomplished today, revealing she studied holy magic at the church. The companions encourage each other to keep recovering and growing stronger together, with the armored youth inviting the young man to join their group despite being beginners. Their camaraderie deepens as they resolve to do their best side by side. The young woman warmly asks if the young man knows about holy magic, sparking a moment of surprise. The cheerful atmosphere continues as Roma enthusiastically looks forward to their next gathering, while the young man feels touched by the kindness surrounding him. The young woman explains that holy magic is the power used by the apostles, capable of completely healing injuries, curing illnesses, and nullifying curses. She adds that it can even summon angels and resurrect the dead. The armored youth listens with wide eyes, amazed, and eagerly asks if the young man can really perform such feats. Suddenly, a crowd of excited onlookers surrounds the group, whispering rumors about the young man being an apostle and eagerly seeking his presence at the Adventurers Guild. The young man nervously suggests leaving the shop, asking for the bill while the others look surprised and flustered. Outside, the group apologizes for the reckless excitement, each expressing regret but also understanding. The young man reassures them that he isn't angry and apologizes for causing worry. He then proposes that next time they all go out to eat, they should share recommendations for great restaurants to make up for today. The others brighten at the idea, nodding enthusiastically. The young man promises to find a place to recommend, and the group exchanges warm farewells. The young woman cheerfully says she'll search for requests they can take on together at the guild, while the others wish each other good luck and thank one another before parting ways. The young man waves goodbye to his companions, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement from the day's events. His tension for the upcoming meeting has eased, allowing him to approach it with calm confidence. Dressed in a finely embroidered cloak and polished shoes, he expresses gratitude for the outfit prepared for him. With his nerves and determination steady, he steps forward, ready to face the important meeting with the king's envoy and pledges to do his best. The Grand Parliament building stands tall under a clear sky as the group arrives, the young man noting its impressive architecture. A woman gestures from a carriage, inviting him inside while attendants and guards line the cobblestone path. Inside, a line of formally dressed men and women bow deeply in unison, their synchronized greetings startling the young man as they declare their anticipation for the apostle's arrival. His shocked expression reveals his surprise at the overwhelming reception. A sharply dressed man named Gallo introduces himself as the young man's guide. Motioning for him to follow, the young man nervously questions the formality, while Gallo explains that he is revered as a divine apostle, even more than the king, leaving the young man overwhelmed despite the praise. The group is led through an ornate hall where two noblemen formally introduce themselves. Gayfer, head of the House of Marquis Soil and Royal Delegate, and Sanamaru, head of the House of Count Sanson. They express gratitude for the audience with the great apostle as the young man is ushered toward a large meeting room. A stern man introduces himself as Gimmel, the guild master of the Adventurers Guild Farius branch, alongside a composed woman named Renee who has been assisting the young man. The young man, gathering his resolve, declares himself Ryoma, blessed by the god Meshaphim, causing the two noblemen to react with surprise. A formally dressed noble presents a sealed letter, explaining it is a message from King Rulo of Philandi, expressing honor and privilege to welcome the apostle Ryoma. The letter humbly invites him to the king's castle to forge a friendship, while a grand castle looms beneath the text, symbolizing the invitation's importance. Lavish gifts from the king are displayed on ornate trays, including scrolls and a large gem, as the noble encourages Ryoma to accept them. The young man is overwhelmed, questioning if he is truly allowed to accept such incredible treasures, while the nobles smile warmly and offer a return gift, holding out a small box. The nobles reveal the contents of the box: rare herbs from Fairy Island, fallen leaves from the World Tree Sapling, and a fairy healing potion, causing the guild master and Renee to react with astonishment. One nobleman requests Ryoma to deliver a message on his behalf, and the young man nervously agrees, recognizing the priceless nature of these treasures and the weight of the responsibility entrusted to him. The young man expresses deep gratitude for King Rulo's warm welcome, invitation, and generous gifts, promising to visit the royal capital without fail. He also offers a gift of his own as a token of appreciation, asking the nobles to accept it. The meeting concludes with mutual bows of respect around the table laden with treasures. In the waiting room, the young man admits to feeling very nervous, but the guild master and Renee thank him for his hard work. Renee politely asks permission to share the contents of the king's gift. Showing a close-up of the sealed parchment, he quietly agrees, still absorbing the gravity of the situation. The guild master explains that the gift includes a deed for a prime location in the royal capital, a permit for a magical airship, and an agreement concerning the young man. The document recognizes him as a divine apostle and guarantees that any hostile actions against him would be considered hostility toward the royal family. The young man is stunned by the weight of this agreement. Overwhelmed by the kingdom's support and the heavy responsibility now resting on his shoulders, the young man contemplates his readiness. He resolves that this calls for an appropriate response, touching his forehead as a faint musical note echoes, hinting at the divine blessing of Meshaphim. A radiant figure grants his blessing and favor, urging the young man not to overthink but to enjoy freely, promising protection against any who would oppose him. The young man, seated comfortably, reminds himself not to overthink and to express gratitude, resolving to continue enjoying this other world by following his own inclinations. The young man, now standing with renewed purpose, is asked about his plans after the meeting, revealing he has a specific destination in mind. Outside, the impressive facade of the commercial guild hall stands tall, signaling the next step in his journey. Walking through the grand hall, he reflects on the king's efforts to ease their operations in this country and the financial support they've received to establish a base here. Suddenly, a sharply dressed man with a monocle introduces himself as Maruni, chairman of the commercial guild hall, warmly welcoming the apostle, catching the young man off guard. Inside the hall, the young man inquires if the chairman knows about him, to which the man replies that information is vital for a merchant and asks how he can assist. The young man expresses his desire to buy land and a house, impressing the chairman with his quick understanding, who then offers to prepare suitable materials and invites him to follow. The chairman of the commercial guild hall spreads out detailed maps and documents, presenting the available properties to the young man. He studies the layouts carefully before smiling and deciding on a 3-story house with a garden, over 20 rooms, and a basement, priced at 6 hard coins, which perfectly meets his conditions. The chairman praises the decision to buy immediately, emphasizing the advantage of securing good things on the spot. He outlines the wages for staff, suggesting 2 men and 2 women with specific monthly salaries, and the young man agrees, acknowledging the generous offer. A carriage arrives to escort the young man to the property, and as he steps outside, he is awestruck by the grandeur of his new residence. The chairman thanks him for his patience and invites him to tour the estate, revealing the impressive mansion surrounded by a gated garden. Inside the house, the young man expresses his admiration for the impeccable maintenance and beauty of the residence. The chairman explains their commitment to keeping all properties in excellent condition and promises to bring the staff the next day. While the young man happily agrees, feeling honored by the care and attention given to his new home. The young man stretches comfortably on a couch, declaring this new residence as his first base. He contemplates a convenient app he recently received, which allows teleportation to designated locations, resolving to use it more often despite past hesitations. The chairman arrives with the staff he promised, introducing 4 new attendants who greet the young man warmly and ask for his guidance. He hands over a contract detailing their working conditions and the non-disclosure agreement they have signed. Standing before the staff, the young man outlines their daily schedule, emphasizing breaks at 9 a.m., noon, and 3 p.m. Surprising the group who had no prior rest periods, he explains the routine from waking up to free time after dinner, encouraging them to familiarize themselves with the rooms. Concerned for their well-being, he advises the staff to take proper breaks if unwell but warns against slacking off. They express gratitude, and the young man watches as 2 of them clean the stairs while another serves him a meal, signaling the start of their new life together. The young man walks through the kitchen as the staff discuss their tasks, their cheerful chatter filling the air. Outside, the sun begins to set behind the grand mansion, casting long shadows over the estate. Seated comfortably on a couch, he expresses gratitude for everyone's hard work and decides to take a moment to rest. Pulling out his device, he contemplates checking the fairy garden and daily quests, wondering if it's time to seek the next challenge. His eyes light up as he studies the quest list on his device, recognizing the dungeon-related tasks crafted by the god Meshaphim. Excitement surges through him as he resolves to embrace the challenge ahead, ready to dive into the dungeon with a fresh mindset and renewed determination. The young man announces that he has informed all the servants about their departure and declares it is time to head to the dungeon. Holding up a device displaying a map app as the sun shines over the estate, he notices something in the distance and wonders aloud what it could be. While people walk along a forest path under clear skies, perfect for an adventure. Approaching the mysterious sight, he observes a towering, spiraled pillar resembling one from a temple, bustling with people coming and going. He cautiously peers into a nearby cave filled with sparkling crystals, questioning if this is the dungeon, his heart pounding as he reaches out to touch the pillar. Suddenly, a message appears on his device, welcoming him to the dungeon created by the god Meshaphim, explaining that the dungeon has been modified to use the environment of the collapsed world to generate materials, items, and monsters. He nervously decides not to overthink the outrageous concept and braces himself to enjoy the challenge ahead. Entering the dungeon, he focuses on exploration as the first priority. When a monstrous bat-like creature lunges at him, reacting swiftly, he prepares to defend himself, alert to the imminent danger as the monster approaches. The young man swiftly strikes down the monstrous bat-like creature with a powerful attack, shattering it mid-air. He reminds himself not to dismantle materials inside the dungeon and decides to gather resources while moving forward. Glowing fragments of crystals and/or float nearby, signaling valuable materials to collect. As he collects the materials, he notices something unusual on the cavern wall and investigates further, opening a chest. He finds treasures but then recoils in shock upon discovering a human corpse, its head gruesomely crushed. The sight unsettles him deeply. Panic overtakes him as he stumbles backward, breathing heavily and struggling to calm down. He admits to himself that he ran in a panic and now cannot find his way back through the twisting cave passages. Doubt and frustration cloud his mind as he wonders if this is truly the adventure he was meant to enjoy, contemplating giving up and going home. Determined to escape, he steels himself and prepares to move onward, but suddenly notices a group of adventurers entering the cavern. Relief floods him as he realizes help has arrived, and he silently thanks fate for the timely arrival of another adventurer party, hopeful that he is saved. A group of armored adventurers confront the young man, questioning why he entered the dungeon wearing such light armor and warning him of the dangers. Clearly doubting his readiness, he nervously admits it's his first time inside and that he doesn't know the way out. The leader of the group offers to guide him back since they were about to leave as well, but insists he should at least carry a map. The young man suddenly remembers he has a map app on his device, feeling frustrated for not realizing it sooner, while one of the adventurers tries to calm the tense atmosphere. The group introduces themselves warmly. A confident woman named Cheyenne, an elf named Seldion, and a man named Ryard. The young man expresses his gratitude and asks to join them, admitting he feels scared being alone in the dungeon. The young man receives a handful of gold coins from one of the adventurers as thanks for their help. They explain that his sister's eyes are turning black and she will eventually lose her sight. But the medicine to slow the progression is very expensive. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he promises to buy the medicine for his sister, touched by their kindness. A man explains that they allowed the young man to join their adventurer party because he wanted to earn money for his sister despite the dangers, revealing a long-standing bond since childhood and his determination to now help her. The young man reflects on his childhood friend Takefumi, who had an older sister that treated him like a little brother, and how he looked up to her, but a somber moment hints at a tragic event. With a resolute expression, he vows to save his sister Azusa, no longer caring if others discover he is a demigod, his determination shining through as he clenches his fist. The group listens in surprise as he offers to cure the illness that even clerics cannot, then reveals a glowing card identifying him as Ryoma Sionji, a demigod, asking them to keep it secret as he prepares to show them something important. A man with long hair and armor commands everyone to bow their heads, declaring the young man before them as an apostle, a sacred being at the pinnacle of all species. The young man looks on with a mix of surprise and determination. The young man urges Seldion to stand up, insisting there's no need for such formalities. A concerned adventurer asks if an apostle can really use magic to cure any illness. While the young man admits this will be his first time curing an illness but confidently says he can, the others watch with wide eyes, stunned by his words. An adventurer urgently pleads for the young man to save Ryard's sister, Mizari, bowing deeply and apologizing for his rudeness. The young man smiles resolutely, promising to give it a try as he announces his arrival to his sister, saying he has brought someone amazing with him. Inside a modest home, the young man introduces himself to Ryard's sister, assuring her that he can cure her illness. She looks doubtful and sorrowful, explaining that the illness cannot be cured by anyone, and that she has already accepted the high cost of medicine. The young man and the group stand nearby, hopeful yet tense. The young man pleads earnestly for Ryoma to save Ryard's sister, emphasizing how hard Ryard has worked for her sake and begging for trust in his abilities. Ryoma, with a calm but determined expression, explains that the gods have granted him special powers, which he will now use to cure her illness, prompting a hesitant but hopeful response from the woman. With a commanding gesture, Ryoma begins the healing ritual, emitting radiant light and magical energy that envelopes the woman lying in bed, while the adventurers watch in awe and surprise from nearby. The woman's eyes flutter open as the healing magic takes effect, her vision gradually returning. She looks at her hands and face in astonishment, realizing she can see clearly again for the first time in a long while. Overcome with emotion, she embraces Ryoma tightly, expressing gratitude and amazement at his strength and the miracle of her restored sight. The others rejoice alongside them, overwhelmed with joy and disbelief at the successful cure. The young man is surprised and delighted as the group enthusiastically suggests going out and having fun together again. Around the woman who was healed, the adventurers share a joyful moment, their smiles and laughter filling the room. He reflects that he never expected anything in return for his efforts, only feeling satisfaction from seeing others happy, and his eyes glisten with tears of genuine gladness. The woman expresses deep gratitude toward the young man, promising to repay his kindness in any way she can, causing him to blush in embarrassment, surrounded by smiling friends. She insists she will find a way to show her thanks. The young man nervously admits he only did what he could and worries about how to proceed, determined not to let things end there. The scene closes on the exterior of the modest house, with a caption noting even a demigod can be flustered in front of a beautiful woman. 3 days after healing Mizari with sacred magic, she is fully recovered without any side effects or relapses, happily waving to someone while a messenger runs toward her. The young man reports to the guild about buying a house and visiting the dungeon, quietly omitting that he got lost there. Despite gratitude for the kindness shown, he worries about people approaching him now that they know he is an apostle, but he entrusts the guild to handle them. He reviews the daily quest list, noting the fairy garden's progress and the god quest's challenging tasks, when suddenly an emergency quest alert appears on his device, startling him. The urgent quest involves a wyvern attack, and he anxiously studies a map showing the wyvern's movement toward Philius, realizing the limited time before it arrives. Alarmed by the situation, he rushes to the guild to report to Gimel, who is seated with another man. The young man apologizes for interrupting, but Gimel welcomes him without hesitation, ready to listen to the urgent news. A man urgently informs Ryoma-sama that a wyvern is heading toward the town, Stressing the emergency, Ryoma listens intently, questioning how the man knows this for certain and asking his identity. The man introduces Ryoma to Wanin, the hero, who greets him warmly and acknowledges the rumors about the apostle. Ryoma reacts with surprise and curiosity. Ryoma confirms he is tracking the wyverns using his apostle powers, responding affirmatively to the man's question. The man explains that 5 wyverns are approaching from the west and are expected to arrive in about 5 days. Ryoma studies a map showing the wyverns' current location, noting that this is the time they lay eggs and must gather nutrients. The man warns that if the wyverns continue on their path, they will attack the town of Fortu before reaching Phaleus. The young man anxiously asks how long it will take to reach the town, noting he cannot use the teleport gate from this distance. The older man estimates 2 days on a fast horse but doubts they can arrive before the wyverns. The young man insists they cannot ignore the impending attack and declares they must take down the wyverns. The blonde-haired hero stands silently, listening. The blonde hero steps forward, offering to join the fight, confident that together with the apostle, they can handle the threat. The young man gratefully accepts the offer, and the older man looks on approvingly. The young man commands Gimel to arrange horses and send reinforcements immediately, emphasizing the urgency. As they prepare to depart, the young man rides a horse, explaining that the black square he used earlier is one of his apostle abilities. The hero rides alongside him through a forested path. The hero expresses amazement at the apostle's abilities and asks what it means to be a hero. The young man explains that heroes are those who surpass the level cap of 100 and evolve into high humans, showing a visual comparison of levels from low to hero status. As they ride side by side through the forest, the blonde-haired hero asks the young man his level. Impressed by his power, the young man reveals he is at level 381. Surprising the hero with such a high number despite his youthful appearance. He explains that although he is actually 84 years old, becoming a high human slows his aging significantly, and he has barely changed since turning 24. The hero laughs heartily, sharing that the lifespan of a high human spans several hundred years, so the young man is still considered young, reflecting on his own sudden evolution into a demigod. The young man admires how heroes like the blonde-haired warrior evolve through their own strength, finding it truly incredible. The young man humbly admits he is still inexperienced and eager to learn from the hero, who praises him as far more amazing. Suddenly, a panicked figure rushes toward them, urgently warning that a wyvern has appeared in the town and they must turn back immediately. The blonde-haired hero acknowledges the warning, noting they should be arriving soon. The man explains that despite fortifying defenses after advance notice, the wyvern destroyed even the sturdy shelter meant for protection. The young man quickly urges the townsfolk to evacuate and get to safety while he and the hero prepare to confront the wyvern threatening the town. The massive wyvern looms over the town, its jaws clamping down on a victim as the young man and the blonde-haired hero arrive too late, their faces filled with shock and urgency. The hero urges haste as the wyverns descend upon the town, dark shapes blotting the sky. Chaos erupts as the wyverns ravage the streets, destroying buildings and terrifying the townsfolk who scream for help and flee in panic, desperate to escape the monstrous assault. The blonde-haired warrior grips his spear firmly, rallying the young man to act swiftly and prevent further destruction, while the young man resolves to convert all his divine power into magic, preparing for the battle ahead. With determination blazing in their eyes, the two charge forward together, the young man conjuring a swirling magical orb as they shout a battle cry, ready to take down the wyverns in a fierce tag-team fight between demigod and hero. As the wyvern crashes into the town, the young man shouts a warning to the fleeing townsfolk while the blonde-haired hero immediately charges forward to confront the monstrous threat. The wyvern's massive tail sweeps through the streets, sending people flying and shattering buildings. The wyverns circle menacingly overhead, their eyes locked on the defenders below. The young man braces himself, reaching out to touch the snarling beast, while the hero prepares to strike with his spear, launching an attack that sends one wyvern crashing to the ground. Flames erupt from the hero's spear as he unleashes a powerful fiery assault against the wyverns, forcing them to retreat momentarily. The hero's determined gaze meets the young man's as they coordinate their next move, while the wyverns regroup in the sky, readying for another assault. The blonde-haired hero chuckles, acknowledging the young man's strength despite initial doubts. As the wyvern's deafening roar shakes the ground and causes the young man to clutch his head in pain from the sheer force, the hero steadies himself, prepared to face the overwhelming power of the wyvern's attack. The young man lands just outside the town, relieved they've escaped the immediate danger. Below, a wyvern crashes into the rocky terrain, sending debris flying as it struggles to maintain flight. Several wyverns soar upward, narrowly evading jagged rocks hurled by the young man, who curses his missed shot but remains determined to capture one. He stretches out his hand, refusing to let the creature escape. The blonde-haired hero conjures a massive barrier of swirling wind magic, creating a protective dome that restricts the wyvern's movements and shields the town. He steps forward confidently, ready to press the advantage. The hero unleashes a powerful blast of wind magic, striking a wyvern and sending it crashing down. The young man watches in awe as the hero celebrates their second downed wyvern, urging to maintain momentum and finish the fight. The young man watches anxiously as several wyverns circle high above, refusing to descend despite the passing half-day. He launches magical attacks upward, but the wyverns remain cautious, keeping their distance within the swirling vortex. He contemplates the dilemma. Maintaining the protective barrier limits their use of powerful magic, but releasing it leaves the town vulnerable to further attacks. Noticing the wyverns reacting to something outside the barrier, he wonders if reinforcements have arrived, and decides they must lower the barrier and cooperate despite the risks. Consulting with the blonde-haired hero, the young man confirms the reinforcements are gathered nearby and prepares to release the barrier. Warning his companion to be careful, the hero acknowledges with determination, ready to face whatever comes next. A group of archers and warriors stand poised, weapons drawn and ready to fire. The blonde-haired hero commands the attack, shouting for everyone to shoot as they launch a coordinated assault against the approaching wyverns, united and resolute in their defense. The wyverns relentlessly unleash fiery blasts, but the young man notices a weakness and seizes the moment, preparing to strike with a determined shout. A massive explosion erupts as one wyvern is struck down, its body crashing violently to the ground. Confident, the young man declares he has taken down one wyvern and grounded another, sensing the final one is vulnerable, but suddenly realizes he has become careless. The blonde-haired hero charges forward, spear poised to strike as the last wyvern lunges toward them, the battle reaching its critical climax. The wyverns crash violently into the rocky terrain, their bodies battered and bloodied as the young man watches in shock and exhaustion. Flames and debris scatter wildly as the last fierce attack unfolds, the young man barely dodging the destruction. The battlefield lies strewn with fallen wyverns, shattered trees and broken stone, signaling the end of the brutal fight. The young man, panting and wide-eyed, acknowledges the victory as a group of townsfolk cheer triumphantly in the background. Nearby, the blonde-haired hero stands solemnly, his expression a mix of relief and lingering concern. The devastated town reveals the true cost of the battle. Injured and grieving survivors tend to the wounded amidst the ruins. The young man and the hero survey the destruction, their faces heavy with sorrow as they witness the suffering around them. The young man quietly remarks on the terrible toll the fight has taken on the people. Standing amidst the wreckage, the young man reflects on the victory's bittersweet nature, acknowledging that while the wyvern was defeated, the lives lost cannot be restored. Clenching his fist with resolve, he hopes those who survived will find strength to endure the aftermath, his gaze filled with determination and quiet mourning. A radiant divine light bursts forth, illuminating the ancient stone chamber where a cloaked figure stands with arms raised, surrounded by awestruck onlookers. Outside, beams of light cascade down upon the town, bathing the streets and its people in a shimmering glow. Among the light, ethereal figures with halos ascend peacefully toward the heavens, including a serene woman who gently reaches out to kneeling children covered in soot and wounds. A man watches with a mix of disbelief and hope as the souls rise. The black-cloaked young man explains that the souls of the deceased are ascending to the heavens, while townsfolk gaze upward in wonder and relief. Suddenly, the blonde-haired hero urgently grabs the young man, calling out to him with concern as he struggles to stay conscious. The crowd surrounds the young man, questioning what has just occurred as he collapses. His identity now widely known, the narration reveals this event will be remembered as the miracle of Fortu, marking the moment his role as an apostle was publicly unveiled, while the town remains bathed in the divine light of answered prayers. Awakening in a modest room, the young man blinks open his eyes, confused and weak, questioning where he is. Memories flicker of the fierce battle where he defeated the wyverns and the devastated town left behind. The blonde-haired hero enters with an elderly man, greeting him warmly and asking about his condition. The young man assures them he feels surprisingly refreshed. The elder kneels, introducing himself as Loden, the mayor, and expresses deep gratitude for saving their town. The young man, now sitting up, inquires about the state of the town. The mayor solemnly reports that half the population has become casualties and 70% of the buildings lie in ruins. Despite the devastation, thanks to the young man's miracle, the survivors were able to bid farewell to their deceased loved ones. The young man listens as the mayor explains that all the injured have fully recovered, some even regaining lost limbs, and that the survivors possess a renewed will to live, filled with hope. The the young man asks permission to see the outside world, his gaze steady as he prepares to face the reality awaiting him beyond the room. The blonde-haired man advises the young man to rest and avoid going outside for now, warning that the miracle he performed has made his identity widely known and could cause a commotion. The young man realizes with shock that everyone has discovered he is an apostle but decides to keep quiet for the time being. The blonde-haired man announces he will soon return to the capital, expressing gratitude for the chance to work alongside the young man and offering his support if needed again. The young man responds warmly, reflecting on the man's strength and humility with admiration, as he hopes they will meet again someday. Sitting on his bed, the young man remembers that the quest was an emergency and decides to claim his reward. He notes the impressive amount of divine points earned and contemplates installing a new app to manage them, noticing an option labeled as a library app, among other choices. Excitedly, the young man imagines how wonderful it would be to read manga and light novels with the app, but then realizes the available magic, history, and alchemy books are all from this world, which frustrates him. Suddenly, a message suggests installing a personal space app to access manga and light novels, surprising him with the possibility of a way to read them. The young man stares at his phone in disbelief as he discovers the personal space app requires 50,000 points to install, and starting it will consume 10,000 points. Despite feeling tricked, he reluctantly agrees to proceed. He hesitates, wondering if what lies ahead is truly what he desires, then opens a door to find himself stepping into a new space. Shocked, he realizes this place is his own entrance. Running through the room, he excitedly recognizes shelves filled with light novels, manga, and anime Blu-ray boxes, overwhelmed by the sight of his cherished collections. Standing in awe, he confirms this is his room recreated in a unique dimensional space, a reward for his hard work on the emergency quest. He notes the kitchen is just like in real life and is reminded to use the space moderately with a maximum stay of 7 days at a time. The young man relaxes deeply in the cozy space, exclaiming his gratitude for this perfect personal room. Marveling at the chance to indulge in his hobbies again, he settles comfortably on a beanbag, surrounded by stacks of books, and reflects on embracing this time to the fullest. 7 days later, he resolves to shift from leisure to action, determined to aid in the town's reconstruction. Outside, townsfolk labor tirelessly amid ruins, clearing debris and rebuilding. He announces plans to build an orphanage, pledging to cover all costs including maintenance and staff, earning heartfelt thanks from the gathered survivors. Supplies and helpers continue to arrive from neighboring towns, steadily accelerating recovery efforts. The young man approaches the mayor, who agrees to speak with him. Seated at a table with 2 dignified men from the holy church that venerates all gods, the young man listens as they introduce themselves as Lowell and Azen, expressing honor at meeting the esteemed apostle. He acknowledges their presence with quiet awe at their grandeur. A man from the holy church solemnly offers prayers for the souls lost in the recent tragedy and expresses a desire to provide support and service through the church. The young man eagerly agrees, emphasizing the need to stabilize the residents' lives quickly. The church representative then proposes building a church in the miraculous town where the young man used his power. The mayor agrees enthusiastically, explaining that a church sanctuary will attract more residents and boost tourism, accelerating the town's recovery. The young man consents, and the mayor expresses heartfelt thanks. A caption notes a month has passed since then. The newly completed church stands proudly as the town of Fortu has fully recovered. The Holy Church's announcement of the town as a sanctuary brings a surge of residents and tourists. The young man, feeling reassured, decides it is time to return to ferias and plans to take it easy for a while. The young man is warmly greeted by townsfolk eager to show their gratitude, offering vegetables, meals, and blessings. Despite their enthusiasm, he politely declines most requests, apologizing that he can only stay for today. The crowd's admiration and affection for the apostle are evident as he prepares to depart. A maid nervously informs the young man that crowds have gathered again outside the mansion, making it impossible for him to live quietly anywhere he goes. He contemplates that he must leave a place where his face is unknown for a while and decisively stands up, announcing his decision to leave. The young man declares he is going to the capital, San Angeles, explaining that the king has also asked him to come, and that a friend named Wanan is returning there as well. He entrusts the mansion's living expenses and maintenance to his attendants, who bow and wish him a safe trip. Preparing to depart, he plans to leave before sunrise to avoid drawing attention and intends to skip greetings with a certain person named Roma. Confident he will see them again soon, pulling up his hood, he sets off for the capital with a determined smile. Meanwhile, townsfolk gossip about the apostle Ryoma's recent appearance in Phaleus, speculating where he might perform miracles next. A woman in armor listens thoughtfully, wondering about the man who looks just like Ryoma, hinting she knows more than she reveals. The young man sets his sights on the capital, San Angeles, pondering the long journey ahead and considering whether he should have borrowed a horse. Noticing a flight skill among his rewards, he decides to give it a try, planning to travel while stopping at towns along the way. Concentrating, he imagines himself flying like a bird and suddenly lifts off the ground, startled but exhilarated by the sensation of flight. Soaring through the sky, he marvels at the breathtaking view and feels the thrill of flying as he aims to get closer to the town below. Upon arriving, he attempts to find lodging but is turned away repeatedly, discovering the town is fully booked despite not being a tourist spot. Feeling dejected, he sits alone until a stranger approaches, offering help and asking if he is looking for a place to stay. The young man laments that every inn is fully booked due to an influx of travelers. Likely because of rumors about an apostle or sanctuary nearby, a cheerful beastman child introduces himself and invites the young man to stay at his family's inn. The young man nervously introduces himself as Taro, a name the beastman finds odd. The child, Nag, eagerly leads him through a lively inn, pointing out the reception desk. The young man arrives in his assigned room, noting the musty smell and deciding to use purification magic to cleanse the space. He then pulls out a device to check available quests for his journey, spotting a dangerous-sounding mission to destroy an orc nest. Meanwhile, in a bustling tavern, soldiers discuss the apostles' arrival in Farias, marveling at their healing abilities and the sanctuary created from a wyvern's defeat. The young man, hidden beneath his hood, wonders if they are talking about him, while the beastman offers to assist if needed. The young man excitedly reads his quest rewards, discovering divine points and 1,000 kilograms of premium augur meat. Imagining how delicious it might be, filled with determination, he resolves to hunt for meat while leveling up. The next day dawns over a vast mountainous landscape as he takes flight. Flying above the forest, he searches for the orc nest on the map, spotting a large gathering of pig-like orcs below. He questions if the nest is nearby, frustrated by the sheer number of enemies. Observing the orc village, he notes the overwhelming size of the group, realizing that if left unchecked, they will spill out of the forest and threaten the area. He decides to use his divine points to boost his magic power, preparing himself for battle. Summoning water magic, he shapes it into a sword and launches a powerful attack against the orcs, confident that although individually weak, their numbers require swift and decisive action to wipe them out. The young man notices a large orc still standing, realizing that attacking from the air alone won't be enough. Resolving to change tactics, he prepares to land and use earth magic against the biggest foe. As the orcs charge fiercely, he swiftly deflects their attacks with a spinning water blade, narrowly avoiding a powerful strike from the largest orc. He hesitates, knowing landing is risky amid the chaos, but the urgency forces him to act despite the danger. Flames begin to envelop his arm as he summons fire magic, determined to press on. The fire magic erupts in a swirling torrent, engulfing the orcs and breaking their ranks. Encouraged by the success, he readies himself to continue the assault with renewed confidence. The young man grimaces as he channels a fierce burst of fire magic, determined to incinerate the orc forces below. Flames roaring wildly and consuming the battlefield. Exhausted, he pants heavily amidst the smoldering remains. Approaching the towering orc, he notes with disbelief that the creature, though clearly dead, still stands upright. He questions if the battle is truly over, then resolves to declare the area a sanctuary after his victory. Suddenly, the orc lunges with a desperate attack, stabbing the young man through the abdomen with its massive greatsword. Shocked, he reels back, realizing the orc struck with its final strength, but knows this is no time to falter. Collapsing to the ground, he is engulfed in a radiant cascade of sacred magic, struggling to stay conscious. He wonders if he has lost awareness, his vision blurring as the healing light envelopes him. The young man gasps in shock as he suddenly feels his arm, crying out that it has healed. He looks at his arm in disbelief, amazed that the wound has completely closed, sitting on the ground. He breathes a sigh of relief, reflecting on how the massive orc was far stronger than he expected and admits he had been overconfident after defeating the wyvern. Checking his device, he sees the quest marked as complete and notes the area has fully become a sanctuary. He observes his level has risen to 12, estimating himself as a mid-tier adventurer now. Though he plans to save the premium augur meat reward for later, he admits he doesn't feel like eating at the moment. He resolves to think positively about the painful experience, considering it a valuable lesson and a win. Stretching and rubbing the back of his neck, he decides to return to Arga, planning to buy new clothes to replace his torn ones and hopes to take a bath to refresh himself mentally as well. The town bustles below as he walks through the streets. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out, catching his attention. Turning, He recognizes Ryoma, who is surprised to see him and wonders why so many people have gathered. 3 friends stand before him, equally shocked and questioning why everyone has come together, pondering if fate is drawing friends to reunite.